Andrew had learned the sound of his land the way other men learned music. The fence wire hummed when the wind pressed just right. The barn door sighed before dawn. Even the dirt had a voice, soft and patient under his boots. That morning, the ranch woke slowly, wrapped in pale light and the smell of dry grass. Andrew stood on the porch with a mug of coffee cooling in his hands, watching the horizon stretch open. He had lived alone for a long time, long enough that silence felt like an old coat. Comfortable. Heavy. He did not expect anything to change that day. Emma arrived just after sunrise, her car crunching along the gravel drive. Andrew watched from the porch, his heart beating a little faster than he wanted to admit. She stepped out slowly, as if unsure the ground would hold her. She wore a simple dress and carried a small bag, nothing more. When she looked up, their eyes met, and something quiet passed between them. Emma had been invited by neighbors who meant well, people who thought two lonely souls might fit together. Andrew had agreed out of politeness. Emma had come out of curiosity, and maybe hope. Both told themselves this was only a visit. They walked the ranch together that morning. Andrew showed her the cattle, the old oak by the creek, the place where the grass grew thick even in dry years. Emma listened more than she spoke. When she did talk, her voice was careful, like someone choosing each word as if it might break. She laughed softly when a calf nudged her hand. Andrew noticed how she held herself, shoulders slightly forward, as if bracing for a blow that never came. He felt a pull toward her that surprised him. It was not loud or urgent. It was steady, like the land itself. By midday, they sat at the kitchen table, sharing a simple meal. Sunlight spilled across the worn wood. Emma traced a small mark on the table with her finger. "I'm not what people expect," she said quietly. Andrew looked at her, really looked, and saw not weakness but a deep tiredness. He understood that feeling. The ranch demanded everything from him, and the years had taken their share. He nodded, not pushing her to explain. Outside, the wind moved through the grass, a slow wave that seemed to match the rhythm of their breathing. The problem that brought them together hovered unspoken between them. Both had been passed over before. Andrew was known as the quiet rancher, dependable but dull, a man who chose land over people. Emma carried a different label, one whispered behind hands, one that said she was difficult, damaged, too much trouble. She had heard it enough times to believe it. As afternoon leaned toward evening, the weight of those old judgments pressed down. Emma stood by the window, looking out at the open fields, and Andrew felt the moment slipping away. They walked again as the sun lowered, painting the sky in soft gold. Near the fence line, Emma stopped. Her hands trembled as she clasped them together. "You should know," she said, her voice barely above the wind, "people always regret choosing me." She turned to face him, eyes shining but steady. "I don't want to be another mistake in your life." The words hung in the air, fragile and heavy. Andrew felt the truth of them settle deep in his chest. He thought of all the days he had spent waiting for something without knowing what it was. For a long moment, he said nothing. He looked around at the land that had shaped him, the fences he had mended, the soul he had trusted. Then he looked back at Emma. He smiled, slow and sure, the kind of smile that came from a place deeper than thought. "I only regret waiting so long," he said. The words surprised him with their ease. They felt right, like a truth he had been carrying without realizing it. Emma's breath caught, and a single tear traced a clean line down her cheek. That evening, they sat on the porch as the sky darkened. Crickets began their steady song. Emma spoke of her past, not in detail, but enough for Andrew to understand the scars she carried. She talked about choices made in fear, about being told she was a burden. Andrew listened, his presence calm and unshaken. When he shared his own story, it was simpler. A life of work, of putting things off, of telling himself he was fine alone. They did not try to fix each other. They simply sat, letting the quiet do its work. Days passed, and Emma stayed. She helped in small ways, learning the rhythm of the ranch. Andrew found himself looking forward to the sound of her footsteps, the way she hummed while washing dishes. The gentle twist came without drama. One afternoon, a neighbor stopped by and made a careless comment about Emma, assuming Andrew shared the old rumors. Andrew felt something firm rise in him. He corrected the man, calmly but clearly. Emma heard later, and the knowledge that someone had chosen her, without doubt, settled into her like warmth. One night, a storm rolled in, sudden and loud. Thunder cracked the sky, and rain beat against the roof. Emma woke, shaken by memories she had never spoken aloud. Andrew found her in the living room, sitting on the floor, arms around her knees. He did not ask questions. He sat beside her, offering his quiet strength. When the storm passed, something inside Emma eased. She realized that regret did not live here. Fear did not rule this place. Andrew realized that waiting had taught him patience, but choosing now had taught him courage. Seasons shifted, as they always do. The ranch changed color, from green to gold to brown, and back again. Emma's laughter grew easier. Andrew's silence softened. They worked side by side, sharing meals, sharing the simple weight of days. There was no grand declaration, no sudden promise. Used to steady knowing. One morning, as they stood watching the sunrise, Emma leaned into Andrew's shoulder. "I was so sure you'd regret this," she whispered. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her as naturally as breathing. "I don't," he said. "Not for a second." The land seemed to agree, stretching out before them, wide and forgiving. Andrew understood then that love did not arrive with noise or certainty. It came quietly, when two people stopped running from themselves. Emma understood that being chosen did not require perfection. It required honesty, and the courage to stay. Together, they faced the open day, not because the past had disappeared, but because it no longer defined them. In the end, the ranch remained what it had always been. Wind, soil, sky. But inside that familiar world, something new had taken root. Andrew no longer stood alone on the porch in the mornings. Emma no longer carried her fears by herself. They had chosen each other, not as a solution, but as a companion path. And in that choice, there was no regret at all, only the quiet satisfaction of having finally come home.